I was a young child, we did move from the Lower East Side of Manhattan to Washington, D.C. when I was 2.5. But, I really grew up in a family that, our family activities were going to picnics and rallies, and watching my father get arrested on television.
Wow.
But we also, lived in a neighborhood that was heavily Black and also bordered the Central American neighborhood, and my school. I went to an overcrowded, underfunded, segregated public elementary school. And I think all those experiences really shaped me because my friends, were, because it's your community, it's your neighborhood, it's your friends, it's your people. And I remember the rent strikes, and particularly in, the Latino community, which was, along Calorama Road in Washington. It was a whole community, largely Central American, largely Nicaraguan, but got pushed out. I remember the rent strikes, and I remember because, again, my family was fighting for economic justice as well as racial justice. And all those things struck me because I watched my whole neighborhood being torn apart. So I went to law school, and I went to law school to be a civil rights lawyer, knowing that I wanted to continue that work, but use the tools I had. I was good at arguing and advocating. And so going to law school and working at the ACLU, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, working with the Puerto Rican Legal Defense Fund when I was there to save maternal and child care beds in Harlem, because that's where Black and Latino women relied for maternal care and had a higher use of the neonatal units, and they were going to move those beds. So all of my career has been focused on these issues. And it's also, in addition to working on government, on policy change, I've also worked in government and was the first Black woman to be a counsel to a New York City mayor. Wow. And worked on everything from sanctuary city legislation to women in minority-owned business enterprise contracts to universal broadband, trying to get more broadband service to people who didn't have it. But left 5 years ago, went into academia, but working as a faculty member on public and urban policy and creating a digital equity laboratory to continue some of the digital divide work I've been doing for a long time, and working on policies and projects, but also being the senior vice president for social justice at the new school. And just felt called into this race because although I've never thought I'd run for public office before, I am the mother of two daughters who are fierce and fabulous. But, for them and for their friends, they have friends, and I have a godson in public housing, and my daughter's dear friends who live in, one who had a close friend in Brownsville, Brooklyn, another friend's, Dominican from up East Harlem and South Bronx. And, it was just clear to me that we are losing a generation of our kids because of lack of opportunity, because of violence, because of trauma, and because of the failure of government to be responsive to how to make this city one for all of us. And in the context of COVID, to recover from this crisis in a way that actually says this is the opportunity we have to remake this city so that we don't lose a generation of our people. And that does mean focusing on the South Bronx. It does mean focusing on East Harlem and Northern Manhattan and on Central Brooklyn and all the communities, Southeast Queens, all of the communities that are always left out and always hardest hit in every single crisis. And it's time we fix what's broken. And that's what called me into the race, but it's been my life's work.
Wow, Maya. And number one, I just want to say that you are a true inspiration. And not only are you passionate about your work, you definitely take the time to dive yourself into these important issues. And it's evident that you've done them, you've done them well enough, to continue ascending in all of these positions that allow you to help out communities that are often seen as marginalized, right? And of
Yeah.
course, so you are not only an inspiration to a community, but to women everywhere. That lets everyone know that it is possible to continue pushing forth with what you believe in, and that things can get better. But of course, we need that fierce voice, and I think in this particular situation, that's you. And
Oh, thank you. So that's
absolutely.
very humbling. I appreciate you.
No, no, and I'm just honored to speak to someone with such who is so well rounded, right? And it's true. Something that as being away from New York City, being that I am the third view, right? I'm looking in from a
Mhm.
different point of view. We are constantly it is not lost in us how much inequalities are in New York City, and this is particular for housing, right?
Yeah.
Even here in South Florida, when we start talking and devising plans, well, we always bring up, New York City. We're like, oh my goodness, look at the people of New York City and look at the housing situation, and it's evident that it's because of these systemic inequalities that
Yeah.
that push against, that is it's already against the people. They're not even
Yeah.
giving the people the opportunity. I've had friends living in Queens, and they had to go back to Puerto Rico and all of that. So my question now is, because I know that you have very well versed plans, and you believe in helping the community, but I want to know, do you have a plan for more affordable housing for the people of New York City? Is there such a thing?
Yes. Yes. In fact, I have several plans.
Good.
Because it's one of the key things that pulled me and called me into the race. Because as I said, I have a godson who lives in public housing. My own kids, who were born and raised here, wondering how they can afford to stay in the city they were born in, and that's even more true for all their friends. So for me, it was really important because I want New York to stay diverse, and
Mhm.
it won't if we don't fix this affordability crisis. So one, look, we have to build more affordable housing that people can actually afford. And that means that are at lower rents than what the private sector has been producing in affordable housing. So one thing that I'm going to do is double the size of our capital construction budget. That's the city's budget that we use to build affordable housing. And we're going to make it more affordable. But we're not only going to build our way out of this crisis, because 45% of New Yorkers and a huge percent of Latinos, of people who are Black, of immigrants across the board, um, are simply unable to pay that rent and are often be evicted. In fact, the two communities that have the highest pending eviction cases right now, we have 40,000 people in the pipeline for eviction right now in the city. And the two communities with the highest rates of eviction cases, Corona, Queens, and Kingsbridge Terrace in the Bronx, you can get are also happen to be some of the hardest hit by COVID, and where we have essential workers and a lot of Latinos, a lot of immigrants, right? So we have to face this head on, that we can't build our way out fast enough. We have to build that housing, and we will. But we also have to recognize that too many people just can't afford the rent right now and won't be able to for a very long time because the rents are too high. So I have created with my team a plan to subsidize rent. So for a family earning $54,000 or less, or a single person earning $42,000 or less, the city will subsidize the rent so that that family or that person is not paying more than 30% of their income on rent, period. Because that will stem evictions.
Absolutely.
It will stabilize families, because even if people aren't in the eviction process, we have too many people. And by the way, we have a lot of people, even people who are in affordable housing. I knocked on the door, a young man answered, his mother's a home health aide, so essential worker.
Wow.
Right? Someone we needed working, taking care of someone who's elderly or disabled in their home. She was $5,000 behind rent in an affordable rent-controlled unit.
Wow.
Because she lost work. So we have a lot of folks also facing eviction who shouldn't be.
Thanks.
But the only way but even those who aren't facing eviction, too many people are choosing between paying the rent and eating a meal. And that's why our food pantry lines are over 2 million people in the city stand at some point in time in a food pantry line. And so many of them work, have jobs. It's because the rent's too high and people are paying the rent first. Because you can't be evicted, right? People are scared. So we've got to subsidize the rent. It's a really important, I'm the only candidate that has a proposal that actually subsidizes rent to keep people in their units.
And I'll tell you, Maya, that I believe that is the right track, subsidized housing. I've lived in subsidized housing before years ago. And, as opposed to what, the misbelief or that people say, oh, those are for lazy people, those are for people who don't do anything. And it's great that you're bringing this and into New York City. It's vital there in larger cities because people are struggling to just make it day by day, especially students, who are just trying to say what in the world, trying to devise their own, I guess, conclusion of what the American dream is. But the American dream is so far-fetched that you're like, okay, I guess my only dream is just having a place to sleep at this point. But so subsidized housing. No, absolutely. Subsidized house. I'm just so glad that is part of your plan, and really, really heartfully believe that will be such a great thing for New Yorkers. Yes, Maya.
I just want to jump in a little bit over time, so if you can do one more quick one, but then we're going to have to hop off the phone.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. And then the final, well, since you're about to hop off, Maya, question: do you have what do you think needs to happen in order to, for New York City to reap the benefits of its maximum potential, aside from, elevating and advocating for excluded communities?
Yeah, well, a big part of it is recognizing that affordability is a growth strategy. Everyone's so concerned, rightly and understandably, with coming out of this crisis that is COVID, that's also created one of the worst economic recessions we've had in decades, right? And that even worse than the Great Recession, because we also have 4 times as many people underwater on their mortgages and possibly in danger of losing their homes. So it's a huge crisis. It's also one we're recovering from. So, but part of the way we're recovering from it is because we've had so much government resources coming in and helping people, in the form of more dollars in unemployment benefits, right? That was more than the usual benefits. So, one of the things that we have to recognize is, we've had people moving back into the city because rents were going down. So making the city more affordable, putting money in people's pockets. I have a plan called the Universal Care Plan to give $5,000 grants to starting with 100,000 neediest families, just to help them, right, with their expenses. Because when we put money in people's pockets, what we're doing is giving them the ability to put that money back into the economy, to go buy more that they need for their families, which means going to businesses that are getting more customers. It's same with our job creation plan, building things we need built, like more affordable housing. We're going to create more jobs and do it as local targeted hiring in communities that need those jobs. And they're good jobs, they're jobs with benefits. So putting money in people's pockets with better paying jobs. These are things that New York City and all cities can do, is really look at what we spend money on, right?
Absolutely.
And even in a crisis, we're going to spend money. So spend it smartly by putting that money into people's pockets so they can put that money back into the economy. So, and doing that by focusing on those who need that money the most is the best thing we can do for the economy, because we forget just how many people are struggling. There's a huge percentage of the city. We don't come back unless we bring all our people back. And that's my plan.
Definitely. And do you have anything else you'd like to share with Be Latina News?
You know, I just want to say that, you know, there's so much, you know, in recognition, particularly of the Latino community and all its diversity, because as you pointed out, you know, there's so much diversity within the Latino community, and including indigenous population. New York City has the largest urban indigenous population in the country. And that means that we have to think about our language access. So we're going to be increasing city services and supports and supports to community-based organizations, because we have 800 languages spoken here. There's no way the city can do all that translation of 800 languages. But if we have partnerships with our community-based organizations based in community and serving our communities, that starts to include those who have language skills, to reach and make sure that folks can connect to all the opportunities we have to offer. So I think part of being an inclusive city, part of holding on to what we love about this city, which is our diversity, which is the fact that 37% of our people are foreign born, which is the fact that we have really a city that represents the world, is by really investing in and holding on to our folks who also come from the Latinx diaspora.
Absolutely.
And that is a key part of our platform, and we're really excited about it.
Yes, and I'm excited as well for your campaign to be successful, Maya. And thank you so much for carving out some time to speak with me today and to Be Latina News. I'll definitely have this published by early next week, okay?
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Take care.
You as well. Bye-bye.